Hi everyone, I'm absolutely delighted to say that today I am joined by two-time Solheim Cup player and a three-time winner on the LET, Becky Brewerton, and another winner from the LET in Lydia Hall. And combined, I think I've got this right, we've played in over 450 tournaments on the LET with a total of, I think, over 65 top 10 finishes. So in my eyes, who better to speak to about sustainability in golf and its impact and influence on the professional game. But before we get into that, I'd also like to take this opportunity to say how sort of delighted I am that you have both agreed to be ambassadors for Ocean Tea this year. And it really is a sort of company highlight to have achieved that. So I'm very excited about the partnership and what we can do this year. So I guess just to jump straight into it, why did you want to partner with a sustainability focused brand? Is it something you've always been passionate about, or has it kind of grown over the last few years?
I think you should go first, Lyd, because this is definitely your passion to start with.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's always been in the back of my mind. There's just the basic things of litter, the amount of plastic that we use at tournaments, like water bottles. And I think, I've done a couple of beach cleans myself, just walking the dog, and it's just scary to see the amount of just rubbish, waste, and plastic that are on the beaches, and in our environment. And Becky and I saw it today when we were driving around just Bridgend area, that the amount of waste and rubbish that people just throw out of their windows into our beautiful landscape here in Wales is just so frustrating. So our main focus, both of us collectively, we wanted to align ourselves with companies that do the right things and showcase being a good human being, and that was kind of a real passion of mine, and Becky was 100% supportive in that, and we're really, really excited to be working with you guys this year, and hopefully for many more years in the future.
Yeah, and I would say I think my passion was definitely started off by Lyd. I was more of a slow burner because, to be honest, until a few years ago, it wasn't really something I'd ever thought about that much, and different things have crept up over the years, and Lyd's been a good influence on me, and I think now with the information that's available on social media, online, obviously we've both been watching a few documentaries recently. When you realise the scale of some of these things, like they're so hard to get your head around when you're talking about something that could, the amount of plastic that could wrap around the earth 270,000 times or something, that's all in the ocean, or animals that are dying and things that are happening. When the scale of it's that big, I think people can sort of think, oh, what can I do as an individual that's going to make any difference? But if we look at everyone as a collective, obviously you're part of that. So ignorance isn't really an excuse anymore. And I think I was just a bit ignorant to start with. So Lyd's been a good influence on me in that sense.
Amazing. And I think exactly that. It's almost that fear sometimes of, well, what actually can I do as an individual, and what is the first step? And I imagine that this might be relevant for you as well, as that, for me, a lot of people, I think, are actually scared about trying to do something but getting it wrong, or being criticised for maybe not doing something bigger, or focusing on other areas as well. And that can be really damaging, I think. And I imagine for players that might be something that's come up. I mean, is sustainability something you've, that players have been speaking about sort of on tour, behind closed scenes, just casually, or is it not really a common topic you hear players talking about?
I mean, I know that me and Lyd, obviously, we've discussed it quite a bit, because we've both always had this gripe, and it actually started out as nothing to do with sustainability, but how annoyed we used to get when we'd be at tournaments and other players might have just thrown their water bottle on the side of the tee, or spectators as well, obviously dropping rubbish around. And we were like the water bottle police, weren't we, at one point? And it was a real issue that we brought up at meetings, just because it would be annoying, the volume of rubbish that was lying around. Obviously it doesn't look good for promoters if the camera comes to picture on a tee and there's water bottles lying around everywhere. So that's how some of those conversations started out a few years ago. And then obviously you start to realise at the end of tournaments, the amount of rubbish we were generating. You're talking about, if you're at a venue for a week, and we're all there. So there's 126 players plus 100 odd caddies plus thousands of spectators times 5 or 6 water bottles each per day for, you know, that's sort of what, 300, 400 people, 7 days, 6 bottles each. Obviously those figures start to then, rather than it just being you have 4 or 5 yourself, obviously it starts to become massive figures. And sometimes at the end of tournaments, when everything's finishing, you can see everything that has to be removed from the venue, and you start to realise that the scale and the magnitude of things. And as I said previously, obviously now that we've got access to a lot better information, some of the information you've got on your website blew my mind the first time I started to read it. You start to think, wow. So it is more of a topic now, and I suppose the only thing that you are right, Ed, I think sometimes it's a bit scary, especially in this world where you can say anything on social media and it can be turned into something different. That's actually, I don't have Twitter or Instagram for that very reason. I got rid of them a few years ago because of, you know, the abuse you would sometimes get, and it's just the fact that things can be taken in the wrong context. So I can see where there might be some fear from players as well about being frightened of actually doing anything.
Yeah, I think that for me is really upsetting. So I've spoken to a few players who've you know wanted to get behind an idea or an initiative, but they've said, you know, all that's going to happen is someone's going to comment on my carbon footprint online, and I'm going to get hammered for it. So I'm reluctant to do something just because I can't do everything. And I think that, as you say, that's the sort of way it is sometimes, where a lot of people are very quick to criticize or judge as opposed to come up with ideas. And I think I've said to both of you, I'm all about celebrating positive changes, no matter how small, because ultimately, as you said earlier, they build up and can actually create something quite significant. So any positive change is a good change, and I think people should support that and realize it. And I also think with your point around the water bottles, it is scary how many water bottles a professional tournament can get through, but we need to realize as well that we have to put the sort of infrastructure in place at golf clubs to have safe cold drinking water available at various points to enable us to get rid of the water bottles. So it's not as straightforward as don't give any water to any players, because you know you need water. So, I think getting, as you say, just educating people and making, you know, setting timelines for this. You know, can we roll this out so in 10 years' time we're plastic free? And I think that's the way we do this in a sort of realistic way. Have you seen anything at a tournament specifically that you've thought, either from an environmental perspective or even a kind of social impact perspective, oh, that was a great initiative, that was really different, really exciting?
Yeah, we were discussing this earlier, and I think the one for me was 2 or 3 years ago at the Hero Women's Indian Open, when they introduced water stations on each, I think it was at least every 3 holes, and every player was given their own insulated Hero Women's Indian Open water bottle. And I thought that was fantastic. And I definitely think that's the way to go forward in the future for, you know, sporting events. That was a huge impact. And I think a lot of the players found it great as well, because often we find, I'm one of them, that will empty their water bottle into a cooler to keep it colder for longer, or to put a hydration tablet in, or a Barocca, whatever it may be, and then to not have to carry the rubbish and put it straight into the bin when you're there on the tee. So I thought that was a great initiative, and hopefully that can happen more in the future, as you said. But I can't think of any others that I'm aware of anyway, Bex.
The only other one I can think of, and I only recall it because it was the first time I'd again ever really thought about it seriously, was we played a tournament in Switzerland quite a few years ago now, might have been about 2012, and during the Pro-Am dinner, there was a guy going around asking questions, and some of the stuff around the tournament had been about reducing your carbon footprint. So they were asking people, and obviously most people were like, well, I don't do anything. And I was one of those who was thinking, please don't come and ask me anything, because I don't really know what you're talking about. And obviously they were trying to sort of think of things like having bicycles available to ride to the golf course instead of taking a courtesy car. The little things like that, obviously not reusing things, not just buying new all the time. So there was lots of things, and that was the first time I'd ever actually sort of thought about it seriously and thought, yeah, this isn't something that's ever crossed my mind before. So they were then trying to start that initiative at that tournament, because they actually had bikes available for players to use, because we were in this small town where everything was close enough that you didn't really need to take a car anywhere or anything like that. So that's the first event I ever remember on tour where there was even a discussion about reducing carbon footprint or anything to do with the environment, really.
Yeah. And how long ago was that? Sorry, did you say?
I think that was 2012.
Yeah.
11 or 12.
I mean, the two of you, I know, are working on something quite exciting together. And I was wondering if you wanted to sort of take this opportunity just to talk about a venture you've been working on.
Yeah, you go for it, Bex.
So I mean, for a few years now, due to our own sort of personal experiences and obviously picking up a lot of stuff over the years, me and Lydia have been talking for years, quite a few years, about potentially starting up our own management company. And it's always been, as players, we could do this and we could do that. And obviously we've been in all the situations that new players have been in. We were comparing stories today about some of the ridiculous situations we've ended up being in halfway around the world, or when something's gone wrong, and we thought we could pull our experience together and start a management company with a difference. It's not just a case of trying to get money for this player or money for that player. It's a real sort of support network for players. Simple things as well, not just a case of getting sponsorship, but how to enter tournaments. When I first turned pro, I was telling Lydia a story today about booking flights somewhere, and because I didn't know where I was going and what I was doing, I booked a one-way flight between two countries in Europe. And that was in the days where a travel agent did it for you, and this travel agent had previously been connected to the tour. And of course, I didn't know that if you booked a one-way flight back then, it would cost more than a return ticket. So there was me and another rookie, and we paid about €1,000 for a flight from Faro to Seville, or some ridiculous thing like that. And everyone else has gone on the EasyJet for £40. And it just things like that, simple things like how to get visas, all the stuff that we've been through, that we can add additional support and be there to kind of help people as well navigate the trials and tribulations of trying to make your way around the world. So we just thought, we've got a lot to offer. We've obviously got a lot of experience. We've both been around a while. I didn't realise we played in that many events between us. I feel quite old. So yeah, we decided eventually, after years of talking about it, we thought, okay, let's just do it. So we did literally one day. We just said, right, let's actually do it, so we don't give ourselves any more excuses to keep waiting and keep waiting.
Yeah, amazing. And are you going to be looking to support sort of female players solely, or looking for male players as well, or what's the ambition?
Currently right now we're obviously in early stages, so we are probably in the future going to be looking at other sports, not just golf, and obviously male and female. We're not, we're going to be open to everyone to offer support from the professional sport industry, really. And it's from two people who have been there at, the heights of Solheim Cups and winning, to having to, do delivery parcels for Amazon to keep the money coming in. So it's from people who have, been through everything that a professional athlete can be, from injuries to not being able to afford to go and play in a tournament and having to stay home to get another job, for 5 or 6 months. And that's why we had this passion, because as we're called Impact Sports Management, we actually really want to make an impact. And that's, again, the reason why we wanted to associate ourselves with Ocean Tea, because you guys are going to have the same plans of making impact in sustainability. And that's what we want to do in the sporting industry, by raising awareness of the women's, trials and tribulations of, gaining sponsorship, but also the support in the back, or the lack of support in the background, that you're not just a number on the books, that you can pick up the phone or text the two directors of the company and ask questions, whether it's, should I hire this caddy, or how do I fire a caddy, or how do I enter a tournament, to what physio or nutritionist or, you know, all of these aspects of professional sport life that we want to be at the front of it for the up and coming players, to give them opportunities, because there's been so many players, you know, from my generation alone that have had to stop playing golf because they financially cannot afford it anymore, and don't have that support in the background that, you know, I'm lucky to have got a great coach and my parents who have supported me as well. But there's some players who just don't have that support. So that was a huge reason for us to start this, was to use all our knowledge from getting the right bank accounts to credit cards to travel advice to car hires to all of those aspects, but also creating a team environment, because golf is hard when you're on your own, competing all the time. To create a team environment that we can all share our knowledge, all share our experiences, all share our statistics, and our resources with each other to all become better players and to make an impact in the women's game of golf, but also the sport industry.
As a very poor, well, average to poor amateur golfer who can have a round and have 17 terrible holes but hit one shot, which makes me think, oh, I love golf. Yeah, I'll come back next week. I was interested to know if you have a sort of all-time favourite shot that you've hit on tour.
That's a great question. Well, interestingly, when you said then about as an amateur having 17 terrible holes and then one that makes you come back, I distinctly remember when I first started playing golf as a junior, I would quite often go to the driving range with my dad and have 100 balls. 99 of them would be absolutely shocking. And I would hit one that was a proper shot, and that was always enough to make me come back, always. So we started out like that as well. And so we have days like that on tour sometimes where you think, how am I even a professional golfer? You know, things aren't going
Who's
well.
on
And you,
these today?
yeah, you have a little spell of 2 or 3 holes where everything seems to come flooding back to you, and it is enough to keep you going. And I've had enough, you know, tough years where I thought about giving it up plenty of times. I'd probably say, actually, rather than having a shot that stands out, that I think actually managing to kind of get through the tough times is probably the best achievement, and not packing it all in. Because believe me, Ed, I've been this close many times, and it's everyone around me, because I've had, the only reason I've survived it is because I've had a good support network, people around me that care, and they believed when I had zero belief, and so that kept me going. So I'd say moments like that would stand out more in my mind. But I mean, we both hit, you know, loads of amazing shots over the years when it's mattered. I remember watching Lyd in her first win at the Bucks on the LET, huge tournament, and she played the last few holes. If she was feeling the pressure, she didn't show it. Now, I knew, obviously, from being in that position myself, she was probably in turmoil inside, but she was as cool as a cucumber. So yeah, that's quite impressive as well, appearing to be cool when internally you're absolutely dying.
Yeah, I would totally I would agree, because again, we've hit, you know, some incredible golf shots probably over the, what are we combined, 32 years or something, I think, of professional golf. So there's too many to kind of handily pull out of the bag. But yeah, I think you find a lot of confidence when you've come out of rough times and bad golf. And again, I've been, you know, close to packing it in after my seasons in 2013 and 14 when my golf was horrendous. But then you know, maybe go back to that driving range and you do find the middle of the club face and remember how it feels, and then you're back on track. So yeah, I definitely think I agree with Becky that it's finding, you know, the confidence. You gain the confidence, and when you come through bad times, that's when you feel at your best, because you've stuck it out and you've got grit and determination and belief, and you get through those bad times. And I think that's again, the players that we are kind of looking for is that ones that have had a bit of a rough patch, whether it's in their amateur career or professional career, but have got a bit of grit about them and have belief in their ability, and with a little bit of help and guidance and support can become tournament winners, Order of Merit winners and Solemn Cup players. So yeah, definitely. I can't find one single shot, but I've watched Becky Brewerton hit a few of those low drillers into the wind.
Oh, God.
Yeah, that most people actually dream about and never been able to do it. And a lot of the girls have, I think in a recent poll, actually, the best ball striker on tour, I think there was a number of people said Becky Brewerton. So it's good to see that she's back on.
I paid all them off. That wasn't because that's what they really thought.